Hi kids, hi Sparky, how's it going? You're feeling good? Good. You had a really good wrestle with Horatio yesterday. Cool, who won? Well, kind of no one, but you think you're like the best wrestler in the world. Wow. Not for humans, he said he wouldn't wrestle a human. What would you wrestle? Sparky wants to wrestle a lion. Sparky, I don't think you'd win against a lion. No, I don't think you... No, Sparky, yes. He says I would. Don't think so. I'm not sure you know how big and scary lions are. They're like super big and scary. They're like the king of the animal kingdom. No, sorry. Sparky says that dogs are the king of the animal kingdom. Well, they might be my favourite animal, but that's not what everyone else says. It's what all the dogs say. Okay, well, whatever. We're going to have to agree to disagree. We're actually going to find out some more about lions in the episode today. Welcome to our brand new series called Meet the Prophets. We're meeting a prophet called Daniel and some of his friends today. Let's go.
Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took over Jerusalem and took some of the people back with him to serve in the king's palace. Among these were Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were told to eat the king's food, but Daniel refused as it went against God's rules. He persuaded the king to let him and his friends eat vegetables and drink water for 10 days, and at the end they looked stronger and healthier than anyone else, and so were allowed to continue. One night King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he wanted to know what it meant. To make sure he was getting the truth, he asked his advisors, magicians, and wise men to tell him not only what it meant, but what the dream itself was too. None of them could do it, and in anger the king ordered that every wise man should be killed. But when the guards came to Daniel, he asked what was going on, and they told him. He said that he would do what the king had asked. He prayed, and God showed him what the dream had been and what it meant. He went to the king and told him that he had dreamt of a monster made of different materials and that each one represented one of the different kingdoms. The king was impressed and put Daniel in charge of all Babylon. Daniel put Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in charge of the surrounding areas. When he visited one of these, the king made an enormous golden statue of himself and declared that everyone had to bow down and worship it when the music played, or be cast into a burning fiery furnace. When the music played, everyone bowed down, everyone except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When the king heard this, he called them to him and said, "Is it true that you do not worship my gods or the image I have set up? If you will do it now, then it's all fine, but if not, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace." They replied, "We don't even need to answer you this. We know that God can deliver us from the fiery furnace if he wants to, but either way, we won't worship you or your gods." The king became very angry and ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual to tie up the men and throw them inside. The fire was so hot that the men who put Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fire were burned up. Then the king stood up in amazement. "Did we not cast just 3 bound men into the fire?" he said. "I see 4 men, unbound, walking in the fire, and they are not hurt." The king called them to come out, and they were completely fine, and everyone was amazed. Daniel interpreted another of the king's dreams, which said that he was going to be kicked out of being king and made to live with the beasts of the field. A year later it happened, but before the end of his life he repented and was restored. Daniel interpreted the next king's dream, where a spooky hand wrote words on the wall. Daniel told the king that he would die, and he did that night. Daniel also had visions of what was going to happen to the biggest kingdoms of the world, how long they would rule and fight each other. The next king was called Darius, and he too put Daniel in charge of a lot of things. Some of the other officials were jealous. They went to the king and persuaded him to make a law that if anyone prayed to anyone other than the king during 30 days, they would be thrown into a lion's den. Daniel continued to pray faithfully to God, and the officials told King Darius. The king was miserable and tried to think of a way to rescue Daniel, but he couldn't. Before Daniel was thrown down, the king said, "May your God, who you serve continually, deliver you." And a stone was laid on the mouth of the den. The king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, and he could not sleep. At dawn, the king arose and rushed to the lion's den, and as he came near, he shouted out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to deliver you from the lions?" Daniel said, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him and before you." Daniel was brought out of the den, and the king ordered the people who made it all happen to be thrown in there instead. Daniel also dreamed dreams and saw visions of what was going to happen in the world, from great monsters to visions of God and of Jesus, and of what would happen at the very end of the world.
What would you rather? Spend the night in a lion's den or go into a fiery furnace? I just don't know. I mean, maybe, just maybe you could fight off all the lions. But if they got you, it would be pretty grisly. And, you know, if you went in the fiery furnace, it would be so hot. But maybe you'd die quicker. Doesn't sound great, to be honest. But what about all these guys we've read about? Daniel did go into lion's den, but he got to spend the night cuddling lions. Ooh. Or what about Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego? They got to walk around in a fire with Jesus. That is all pretty epic. I love these crazy stories in Daniel. They almost don't feel like reading the Bible. They feel like reading some kind of fairy tale. But I think these wild and wonderful tales, the men dancing in the fire and not getting burned, the dreams, the handwriting on the wall, the night in a lion's den, I think the wild and wonderful tales are meant to encourage us and strengthen our faith. Because if God can stop people from being burned in a fire, maybe he can help me with my maths test. And if God can stop lions attacking people, maybe God can help me with my friendship situations. And if God can send Daniel all these crazy messages about the king, surely he'll help me with whatever's going on in my life. Daniel knew this. Daniel had faith in God. Now, Daniel wasn't a kind of fairy tale type person. He was a big deal. He was in charge of loads of things in the kingdom. Can you even imagine running a kingdom? There'd be so many things to think about, like the army, where are they? What are they up to? Do they have enough food and swords? Like the normal people, do they have enough food and spades or whatever they need? And like fancy banquets, but boring things like waste disposal, I mean poo. Ugh. Anyway, Daniel had to think of so many important and complicated things, but he also never ever remembered he never forgot God's perspective. He never forgets that God is all powerful. He never forgets that God ways are higher and stranger and better than anything we can think of. And because of that, he listens to God's voice even when it gets him into trouble. He and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego know that God's way is the most important. They all could have saved themselves. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could have bowed down to the golden statue, or Daniel could have not said his prayers, but they knew that it was far more important to honor and obey God than it was to obey the king. I love in the story when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say, "We know that God can deliver us from the fiery furnace if he wants to." They know that he can do it, but they don't actually know whether he will do it. But still they decide, this is the thing to do. We are going to honor God above all other things. And the book of Daniel and all these stories we read invite us to live this way as well. To see that God is at work around us, to believe that he is involved in our lives, and to live like his ways, his ideas are higher, stranger, and more powerful than anything else going on in the world around us. It invites us to trust in God. It invites us to listen to God. It invites us to honor God above all else. and to see the amazing things, the strange things that he wants to do in the world. Now, as you'll have picked up from this book of the Bible, it's not necessarily a safe or an easy way to live. God might call us to do something a bit scary or out of the ordinary or outside of our comfort zone. He will call us to trust in him rather than in the things everyone else in the world trusts in. But it is the best, the most adventurous, the most brilliant way to live, knowing that God is with us and he has our lives in his hands and he wants to fill them with adventure and great, amazing things. He wants to move in your life. He wants to help you to do the things that he has called only you to do. If you want to live the amazing life of adventure that God has made for you, why don't you pray this prayer with me? Dear God, your ways are stranger and more powerful than anything else I see around me. Open my eyes to what you're doing. I choose to trust in you. Amen. So, Sparky, do you still think you could fight a lion? Oh, Sparky says he doesn't think he'd have to. God would just sort him out. Well, I mean, that's great for you to have because we can have faith that God will protect us. I just hope, I guess, that you're never in a situation where it's just you and a lion as well. But I'm sure God would protect you. Anyway, should we show the Spark Kids what craft they're doing? We're actually going to be making this awesome lion face. So I hope you enjoy that. Have a great week and we'll see you soon.